Welcome back to the Dad Days. Today we are going to be making a sourdough brioche loaf of bread. If this is your first time finding me, I'm Josh. I'm a stay-at-home dad. Around here, I do sourdough starter and bread. I also do simple whole food cooking. If that sounds interesting to you, subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. Lately, I've been craving a brioche bread with that rich, buttery consistency. So today, let's make one. So step one actually happened 6 to 8 hours previously. It's building a levain. So you take 50 grams of your active starter and you add 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water. You're basically building the starter that you're going to use for your dough. So I already did that, so we're ready to start the dough now. After the starter has been made, the first step in creating the dough is adding some of the ingredients, some flour and wet ingredients to perform an autolyse. So I'll just start making the dough now. And the full description, the recipe and all the details will be in the description. So definitely check that out if you miss anything, or pause the video, whatever you have to do. So first is 180 grams of bread flour. As always, I recommend measuring, weighing your ingredients. So I will link a scale in the video, in the description. 181, that's good enough. 120 grams of all-purpose flour. Okay, 121, good enough. So some of the wet ingredients are milk and water. I already have it measured out. They're combined together. It was 60 grams of whole milk and 50 grams of water. It also calls for 2 eggs. So I'm going to add them right to the milk and water and then mix it all up together so it's well incorporated. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and mix these 2 flours together a little bit. Add these wet ingredients. The last thing is you're using 100 grams of your levain. I'll go ahead and mix that in. Look how stretchy that is. Okay, we're just going to mix that up until it just comes together. And then we'll let it sit for 30 minutes and perform the autolyse. That is just allowing the flour to fully hydrate. It helps develop gluten, and it makes the dough easier to work with when you start performing the kneading or stretch and folds. So that's about where we want it. Just to look like that, a little bit craggy, not fully formed into a dough ball. We let it sit for 30 minutes and then we'll be back. The brioche completed the autolyse. The next steps is adding the salt and the sugar. 6 grams of salt, 40 grams of sugar. I already measured it out. I actually used organic raw cane sugar. I blended it in the Vitamix a little bit to make it powdery and easier to incorporate into the dough. And then I'm going to be dipping my hand in water to knead it so it doesn't stick to me quite as much. Once you have the salt and the sugar incorporated into the dough, that's when you start to add the butter and incorporate the butter as well. I'm going to be incorporating 90 grams of softened butter. So I'll just add a few cubes at a time. This is a wetter dough, so it's easier to incorporate the butter with a stand mixer. We'll have it on a low to medium speed for about 10 minutes. Okay, I've incorporated all the butter. It's been on the mixer for 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to try and show you a window pane test to see about the gluten structure. So if you pull it up, can you see in the video the light shining through? That's good. So the window pane test performs. The next step is a bulk fermentation for 4 to 6 hours. During that span, you want to do stretch and folds about 2 times. After that, it does a fermentation, a cold fermentation overnight. Okay, the first stretch and fold for the brioche. Okay, the brioche spent overnight cold proofing in the refrigerator. That's the step that takes place after the 4 to 6 hour bulk fermentation that we did yesterday with the 2 stretch and folds during the bulk fermentation. If you have any questions regarding the steps, all the information will be in the details below. So after the overnight fermentation, in the morning, you shape the loaf, and I'm going to be using this stone crock for the bread. You shape it, and then you do another final proof of 2 to 4 hours before you bake it. Put your seam side down. And now it'll go for another 2 to 4 hours. The final proof is over, the 2 to 4 hour proof. The only thing I have to do is brush an egg wash over the top of the loaf. Then I'm going to bake it at 375 for about 30 to 35 minutes. We're looking for an internal temperature of about 195. So I'll just brush the top with an egg wash. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with an egg wash, but it's just an egg with a splash of milk whisked up. I'm going to use this little brush here and just brush the top of this loaf. It just helps add a nice golden brown color to the loaf. I'm just going to give it a light score just to help it from tearing as it bakes. Welcome back. The bread is done, the brioche bread. Let me get it out of the oven and we'll take a look at it. That's the finished product. Get a close up. You can see it has a beautiful golden brown color. You can see right there, it had a thermometer in it. That's how I know for sure that I'm getting a full bake, a finished bake. It went to a 195 degrees, but that's what it looks like. We'll let it cool down and then we'll get a crumb shot and a taste. Let's see what the crumb looks like in the brioche bread. There we go. Brioche isn't known for being like a super airy bread like you would normally see for sourdough. So this is typical. It's just a nice, soft, chewy, rich bread. A little bit of Redmond's real salt. Okay. Very good. Soft, buttery. You really get the richness from the butter and the eggs in there. Highly recommend. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you give it a try. As always, stay tuned for more Dad Days.